Nick Robinson here for Polygon, and I'm joined by Anoop Shekar of Volition. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. You guys just unveiled, I guess, gameplay for the first time of Agents of Mayhem. Tell me a little bit, what's the elevator pitch for somebody, maybe if they're a Saints Row fan, but they don't know what this new series is? Like, if you're a longtime Volition fan, like I am, sell me on Agents of Mayhem.
The best way I can describe Agents of Mayhem is think the humor and tone and fun irreverence that we had in Saints Row applied to a super agency game where you're fighting against a large supervillain organization around the world trying to stop them from doing evil things.
Sure. So I actually got the chance to play the game a couple days ago, and one of the things that was really striking to me right away is it seems to be built around this mechanic of you pick a loadout of a few characters. There's a few to choose from, actually, sort of a short range, a medium range, and a long range one, to, if that's not oversimplifying it. And you can, using the D-pad, change characters at any time. So whereas in a normal game you might switch to your shotgun when there's close range enemies, you'll actually switch to an entirely different character with a whole set of close range abilities. Can you talk a little bit about that mechanic? That's kind of the linchpin of this game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's sort of the critical thing that makes you feel like you are controlling this agency. You're running the agency and the squad, and so you're like you said, when you're in a combat situation, you're swapping between them to deal with different combat scenarios. So when you have a lot of close melee guys, you'll switch to Hardtech, who's got a big shotgun, and he's really good up close. His melee attack actually does like a sweep and takes out enemies all around him. And then when you see a bunch of guys at a distance, you switch to Rama, who's this long-range bow attack character, and she can like pick them off from a distance, and it's hard for them to hit her, so she can kind of take time, charge her shot, and take them out.
So Volition is clearly a studio built around the open world game, and I think Agents of Mayhem, if I'm not mistaken, that name, that phrase comes from an internal Volition thing of like, this is what we want to enable players to be in our game, is an Agent of Mayhem. And part of that is, I think, like one of my favorite things to do in Saints Row was to run around the open world, just, you know, like throwing mines everywhere, grabbing civilians and throwing them off bridges, stuff like that. And when I think of my memories of Saints Row, it's the frantic sort of procedural open world random things, the personal stories that happen to me. Does Agents of Mayhem have a place for that type of chaos? Like, what are the things that I'm going to remember when I look back on Agents of Mayhem?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We have what we call these gremlin tech weapons that all agents can use. You can build them up and get a bunch of uses out of them. You get them from your HQ and take them into the city, and they have a lot of different effects. A lot of them are good against your enemies, but some of them are they just cause havoc, almost for the sake of causing havoc. So, for instance, in this demo, we have what we call the Pedsplosion, which is basically pedestrian explosion. And the idea is you turn it on, and you run by some nearby pedestrians, and they get a counter on over their heads, and after a count of 3, they kind of explode.
That's a very Volition type of attack. I love that. I want to talk a little bit about the world and the story of it, because in the small slice I played, so this whole game takes place in Seoul, South Korea, right? The capital city of South Korea, one of the most densely populated, technologically advanced cities on Earth. And the bit that I played actually involved a K-pop star who is also sort of like almost like a Vocaloid, like a Hatsune Miku or something, where she's not a real thing. She's sort of an AI, almost like a rampant AI who has kind of lost her way. Can you talk a bit about like that character and also the overarching world of Agents of Mayhem that you guys have built?
Sure, yeah. I'll start with Aisha. Yeah, the idea in the demo is she is this AI who's actually like built as a military AI and then sort of got this personality of a K-pop singer. So she's actually known in the world of AOM as a K-pop star, and a lot of people don't even necessarily know that she's an AI. And in the demo, you're basically trying to prevent her from being taken by Legion. However, you find out that she's actually decided to marry Steel Toe, one of the Legion lieutenants, who's basically a cyborg transhumanist. And you know, the idea is, like, what does that mean for a virtual character, a person to marry a cyborg? And well, the idea is, well, we don't know what that means, but it's probably bad if Legion wants to do it, so we got to stop them from doing that.
Right. There's one moment in that demo that really stood out to me where she split into 5 versions of herself and said, "We are Aisha." And it's interesting because it's playing with, like you mentioned, like just transhumanism and super advanced technology. And is a pop star that's an AI one person or 5 people or 100 people? It's one of my favorite things that you're exploring, is like this weird middle ground between AI and humans. Is that one of the fundamental tenets of the world of Agents of Mayhem, is futurism, I guess?
In this game, yeah, absolutely, because Seoul is, like you mentioned before, very technologically advanced, and we've taken that even further in Agents of Mayhem. The Ministry of Pride, which is the ministry that you're fighting against, the version, the part of Legion that's in Seoul, all they care about is robotics and technology and AI, and so that's the reason they're there, to try and steal and exploit the technology and build themselves up to be stronger. And that's the reason why we chose Seoul as the city, as sort of a reflection of why the ministry is there.
Gotcha. So one thing that I think stood out to a lot of people, myself included, when you guys released that cinematic trailer I think a week or two ago now, was at the end we saw an Ultor logo. You're wearing a Saints Row shirt right now. I'd love to know your thoughts on, like, Volition games traditionally have kind of shared a universe. Is this in the Saints Row universe? Is this in the larger Volition universe?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it. It's got connections to things that we've done in the past, Altor, and as you noticed, the Fleur, which isn't exactly the same as the Fleur as we've had in past Saints Row games. So, and I think that's sort of it's connected to, but not the same. And the idea is that at the end of Gat Out of Hell, we had this. Johnny Gat had a choice about what to do. And in one of the versions he chooses, there's a sort of recreation of the universe. We're not taking that exact version per se, but we're sort of building off of that idea for Agents of Mayhem.
It's super interesting. Now, so one of my favorite video games ever, no exaggeration, top 3 games of all time for me was Red Faction Guerrilla. And I know that Red Faction, you guys no longer have that. That was a THQ thing that got handed off to Nordic. But I'm curious about the tech that ran that game, because every time a Volition game gets announced, my first thing is, am I going to be able to knock down a building? Do you guys still have the engine of Red Faction Guerrilla, or was that gone with the rights to the name?
We do have access to all the technology that we've built in the past, and it's something we do always look at. We're not currently using it, but yes, we do own the destruction technology that you've seen in our previous games. Oh,
that's awesome. So theoretically, someday we could get a Volition game about destruction still. You guys still have that somewhere inside you?
Yes, absolutely. It's something we have a lot of fond memories of, just like you do. And if the right opportunity presents itself, I think we would definitely look at that.
That's awesome. That's very exciting. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for giving us a look at Agents of Mayhem. We got plenty more videos coming all throughout E3 week here on youtube.com/Polygon or on polygon.com/videos, and all sorts of news posts all over the website. So yeah, keep it posted. Until then, I've been Nick Robinson, and thank you for watching.